Well, I think it starts probably with depth, right? You have a system that employs both 4 down and 3 down, more of a man, nickel, flexible sub-package defense. So you need depth there, and I think we've recruited to the depth of that defense. Now, albeit that they're young players, they are talented players that are going to have to play for us early in their career. But we feel like a number of them are in a position to play this year, and they'll have to play this year. We don't have the luxury to wait around for them to be second and third year players. So the answer to the question is we recruited to that, and now we just have to play them a little bit sooner than maybe we want to, but we think that they're talented enough to go up there and make up for any lack of experience, if you will.
I've stayed away from the quarterbacks a lot, but I'm just curious at this point.
Jump in the fray. Why be afraid?
What more do you need to see? Because, I mean, it sounds like from what you've said to this point that, they're playing, each one of them brings different strengths. You're not playing the same pages of the playbook. So what do you need to see to make that decision at this point?
You always bring, the pragmatic approach to most of your questions. So I would say that you're right. There's not anything else that we can see. They both have been outstanding. They both make plays. They're both playmakers. We would just continue to practice and continue to see both of these guys make plays. So we're going to play both of them at Texas. So both of them will play at Texas, and both of them have been instructed to keep doing what they're doing, but both of them will play against Texas.
And eventually, would you like there to be separation, or does this not bother you to play two?
It doesn't bother me to play two going into the Texas game, and then we'll see what happens the next week against Nevada. I'm focused strictly on how we beat Texas, and we're best prepared to beat Texas by playing both Deshaun and Malik.
Last thing from me, Justin Yoon, he might be firing pretty well on the days we're not there. We've seen some misses in our practices. Yeah. Just wondered if that's typical this time of year, or is he just getting used to a new holder?
No, I don't think the holder. I think Montgomery's done a really good job. Scott's done a great job daily of snapping. A little bit, just mechanical. It's just a routine that he's got to get into, and we felt like a couple of times he just doesn't finish the way he needs to. But when he finishes on the ball, and I think his first one in overtime was from 45 yards. He is really effective, and so it's just really just being consistent with his mechanics. His operation times are outstanding, so it has nothing to do with operation. Just consistency in his mechanics. I think he's close. He's nodding. He's not there yet, but I think when we get ready to play Texas, I think he'll be right on. Don't
Brian,
be afraid.
With both, you saying both QBs will play against Texas, you mentioned earlier that the offense is kind of evolving with each one. So you've seen the offense evolve in the way that you've wanted with
Yes.
each one so far?
Yeah, I have.
So how would that play out? Would it be kind of like we saw against LSU necessarily with guys switching off drives, or would it be situational, how you would switch them in?
I think there's room for both of those scenarios to unfold. I think both of their skill sets simply have slight differences, but both of them are playmakers. And if I list our top 5 playmakers, they're in it. And so my ultimate decision was that I can't put one of those guys on the sideline against Texas. And as it relates to running the offense is seamless when one of them would come out of the game. There's not a big change when one is in versus the other. There's play call differences, but that doesn't require much change at all. And then there are some situational down and distance and field position considerations that will go into that as well. This is not a first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. One guy plays the first and third, and one plays the second and fourth.
With the receivers today, we saw you giving some coaching to guys like Miles Boykin and that. Have you seen anyone start to play with a little bit more consistency at that position outside of maybe Torrey Hunter so far?
Well, I think they've all, in particular, Equanimous, Miles, Chase, have been more consistent, no question. Route running, catching the football. There's been that consistency, certainly from the first week to the third week. So we're getting more consistent. We're not at the level that we need to at a championship level. They're playing okay, but we need better. And we don't, we have a high standard for that play. And they're getting better, but they need to get better quicker. Sure, let's go all the way in the back.
Want to make me do some stairs?
Brian, I'm curious what you've seen from Niles Morgan so far in camp, just how he's taken ownership of that position and lived up to everything it sounds like you guys have been speaking about him. So.
Really solid play. Consistently solid in all the facets of middle linebacker play. Getting your defense lined up, front in particular, communication, accountability, both personal and for other players, physical, both in his run fits and in the passing game. Got to calm him down a little bit. When it's tag off, he thinks it's still tackle. It's probably a good trait for a middle linebacker. Wouldn't want it the other way, but he's been really good. So feel good about him. And we got Greer in there, Greer Martini, to play some Mike linebacker, like the way he played the other day. And so developing some depth at that position has been good as well.
Back to the quarterbacks, curious, how have you said both are going to play at least in week one? How have you presented that to them and how they're obviously competitive guys and both of them, I'm sure, want the job to each self. How have they kind of handled that so far?
Yeah, look, quarterbacks in particular, and not like it's different, but, and I think you probably said it best, all players, are extremely competitive. And so, I'm sure each one of them, down deep wants to be the starting quarterback. And so, though they didn't show it, I'm sure they're disappointed, that they want to be the starter. But they understand that that my decisions are based upon what's best for Notre Dame football and not necessarily what's in their best interest. What's in their best interest is that they're the starter. What's in our best interest is that both of them help us win and beat Texas. That's in the best interest of Notre Dame football. And I make decisions as the head football coach as to what's in the best interest of Notre Dame football. And so sometimes that's hard for an individual to understand. But they understand team comes first. And that's what's most important. But there's always going to be that struggle with the individual versus the team. But they clearly understand that team is most important, and winning and beating Texas is more important than how they feel about the current situation. But down deep, I'm sure they're probably not happy with sharing the position.
Do you think making that decision this far out from the opener will, in a sense, maybe calm them or relax them, not look over each shoulder and not look at this as I got to win the job and we're just going to go forth with this plan here?
I did it for a reason. I made this decision this early because it was clear to me that the more we practiced, the more that they were going to make plays, and it was not going to change anything. Both of these guys were two of our top playmakers. So the decision was made, and then I think now they can just settle into getting better every day. They don't have to worry about a competition for the Texas game. They can just focus on getting better. So, whatever the byproduct of that is, I thought would be a positive, and that's why I made the decision at this time.
Ryan, to your left. On that note, I would think the camp portion's kind of winding down. You would get into Texas soon. Do you feel the need to find the will linebacker and the right guard, especially the right guard, and that get a little cohesion to go on the offense?
Well, Greer's been playing mostly Will linebacker, and he's done a really good job there. So, you know, Will linebacker is in pretty good hands, and Tavon is there as well. But I like where we are with Greer and Niles and James, and Tavon is really a solid guy for us as well. Gives us a lot of flexibility. So, you know, I like those 4 guys a lot. The right guard is still work in progress. You know, Colin McGovern, you know, got a lot of work there, got a little heated, and had to have an IV after practice, but, you know, he's been battling there with Tristan Hodge. So that's still a competitive battle, and I think that will continue to go.
Is Greer's maybe greatest strength for you guys, or most important facet of his game, that he can back up every position too, along with starting at the will?
Well, that certainly helps, but he's got to be good enough to hold off a really good player in Tavon Coney, too. So, you know, we don't want him to be a jack of all trades and master of none, and we've given him enough work at will that he could solidify that position first, which he has. And then that's when we started to move him around at the mic, you know, a little bit, and a little bit at Sam as well.
Raise your hand. Anyone have questions?
Anybody else?
Okay. Go home early today? Is that possible? Not so.
Coach, wondering where you stand as far as the running backs. You said you want to have 3. Do you hope to have one featured more, or do you think it'll be evenly divided between the 3?
I think we'll do what we did last year and play the hot hand. You know, when CJ got hot, you know, we played him quite a bit. When Josh got hot, we played him. But I do think that we are a little bit different this year in that we do have some different styles. Folston is a really good runner between the tackles, very instinctive, plays with really good pad level. And when you look up after the run, he's picked up 6 yards, and you didn't even think that he picked up 6 yards. Josh Adams is a guy that strikes the edge of the defense. Long-legged, explosive guy that really hits the edge quite well. And Dexter is a guy that can do both, can run it inside and outside. So I think maybe this year the 3 of them are different runners in that sense. So I think all 3 of them will get a chance to run in certain situations, but I still think we'll go with that guy that's really hot and feeling it from an offensive perspective.
And does it change depending on who the quarterback is? In other words, does your running game change with who the quarterback is?
No, I think the one thing that may change a little bit is Folston is a very experienced player. And, you know, that first time out there, 98,000 people, you kind of go to the guy that has a little bit more experience. And Folston is that guy. And a certain Josh has got that experience too. But third down situations, Folston is an excellent guy coming out of the backfield. So, you know, we'll tend to look to guys that have great experience in certain situations. And, you know, Folston carries some of those experiences with him that, you know, make him a natural for certain situations.
And you've talked about developing an identity for a team. Does it become more challenging when you have 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and so many receivers? You know, how do you develop it with so many diverse people out there?
Play calling. Play calling develops the identity. You know, if you're all over the map in terms of what you're doing, are you a team that is not committed to something? Are you a team that is not balanced and, you know, can't run the football or is going to throw it every down? I mean, your identity really comes from, you know, inside out, and that is, you know, controlling the line of scrimmage. So, you know, that's what I mean relative to identity. It's going to be plug and play, you know, with the quarterbacks and running backs, provided, you know, your system of offense allows you to grow an identity, and we'll do that from play calling.
And does having 2 quarterbacks make your job tougher in that you have to try to keep 2 people happy who are going to be competing for who gets the more time, who gets the key plays, who gets the touchdowns, you know, that sort of thing? Who's the leader of the team?
Well, both of them have to lead when they're out there. There's no question about that. They have to be commanding the offense. They have to be clear in their communication. And both are capable of doing that, or we wouldn't play both of them against Texas. Having said that, it's never easy playing two quarterbacks. It's much easier just playing one. But we're in the business of winning, and so if it's a little bit harder on us, then we can make that work if the net is we win the football game. So, yeah, I mean, there's no question that some people shy away from this kind of business in terms of playing two because it's easier to just play one. My job is to win, and my belief is playing both of them gives us a better chance at winning.
Brian, over.
Yes, sorry.
How is it harder? And I'm curious more like during the week in meetings. You can't practice more. So
How is it harder?
Yeah, for the coaches in terms of coming up with their game plans. Do you have to put in more time to it? How does that all work?
Well, no, I think it's harder game day, Pete, more than anything else. I think, quarterbacks want to be in a rhythm. Quarterbacks want to feel as though they're not pulled out if they make a bad throw. They don't want to feel as though there's any pressure on them to try to force a throw to stay on the field, and so I think that's where it's more difficult. And so that's where you have to be really good at what your plan is and how you're going to work both quarterbacks into the game and the situations and the flow of the game. And you got to get both of them, understanding that if they make a bad throw, they're not getting yanked, or they're in a 12-play drive, and if you bring somebody else in, they have to understand the reasons for it. So that's a little bit trickier. That's a little bit more difficult.
Going back to when you walked out of the stadium after the spring game, when you said, "I want to pick one. We got to have an identity to today." What was the moment along the way where you're like, you know what, this is unconventional, but I have to do this?
These two guys are too good. I'm just watching them in practice every day, and they're making plays. And then I watch our other players around them, and they're clearly not as good as these two guys. These two guys make too many plays. And it was just counterintuitive for me to take one of them off the field at the expense of putting somebody else on the field for so many more plays and saying, you're the number two, you're not going to play in this game. It just didn't make any sense to me. The more I went through this preseason camp and watched both of them make plays, and not just with the first unit. Malik would go with the first, and he'd score. Kaiser would come with the seconds, and he'd score. And it was kind of like that the whole team. And we had 257 reps going into today. They had 2 interceptions combined, the two of them, in 257 reps. And that's with, guys not in the right position and running the wrong routes. And it's been remarkable. These guys have played so well that I had to change course and put both of them on the field.
Changing gears, when do you expect to do captains this year?
Well, we just submitted our list to our faculty board for approval. So we're in the process of making that happen here.
Player vote, coaches name them?
I haven't decided. We get the names first approved, and then I decide whether we're going to put it before our Unity Council, our team, or we do a limited democracy vote.
And big picture. I mean, there are programs that have to rebuild when they lose as much as you guys lost. There are programs that reload. I'm sure you believe you're more towards the reloading end of that spectrum. With the program at large, the university, what are some of the things that you feel like have helped you get more and more towards the reloading end of that, whereas when you got here, maybe it would be more of a rebuild? Well,
winning helps. National recognition for winning and, recruiting. Those two things go hand in hand, but I think, the work in recruiting along with the winning and really, the wins that we had and that national recognition coupled with taking advantage of that through recruiting, maybe a little bit of our success in guys moving on to the NFL and having some good success there. I think if you put all those three things together, that's helped quite a bit.
Coach, back in the spring game, one thing you talked about with Kaiser was him doing better in the red zone with scoring and not going for field goals. I guess,
Yeah.
I know obviously still in preseason, haven't really played a game yet, but have you seen some growth there, or how have you seen him grow in that area?
Yes, we've worked extensively in that area, and I say extensively, made a conscious effort in our practice plans. I put together all the practice plans to spend almost double the time that we had last year at this time in the red zone. And so he's gotten so much more work, him and Malik in particular. So I think that extra work has just afforded him a more comfortable level in that area. He's working the areas in the red zone so much more efficiently, and I think he's grown to the level that I've wanted him, both him and Malik, in that area.
Are there any places in particular with their games that you'd like to see them grow more so in, or that you might be focused on looking for, especially come that Texas game?
Yeah, we've got to do a little bit better on our play action pass concepts and throws, and some of that is with our receivers. You come out of play action pass, and you got to throw it before they get out of their break, and it's not, you got to trust where your guys are. I mean, those two are doing incredible in our 3-step, 5-step game, our screen game. They're throwing somewhere near 70%. We got to do a better job in some of our play action stuff, and we'll spend the next 3-4 days on that.
Obviously, having that interchangeable offense, like you were saying, with the ones and with the twos, no matter who's in the pocket, where do you feel your biggest strength lies right now with your team?
Well, I think there's a number of different areas for us that we like. Certainly, from a defensive standpoint, we're going to be able to be multiple and do a lot of things and cause some confusion. I think we're going to do a very good job of playing the football. I think our safety play is going to be, really strong. I think up front, we'll be able to stop the run and at times get after the quarterback. So I think defensively we'll see a lot more of the things that everybody looks for from a defense that is much more pressure-oriented. Offensively, I think we're going to be able to run the ball effectively. And I think when you start with good football, you stop the run and you run the football. Yeah.
Coach, if they are two of the top 5 playmakers, would you actually consider using them on the field at the same time?
Yeah, I would. I would definitely consider it.
How would you do that?
Couldn't tell you. I'd have to do something, and I don't want to do that to you.
Coach, there are so many injuries today in football. With the advancements of sports medicine, you would think maybe they would be less. John Fox of the Bears said it's just a tougher game. The game today is so tough, you're going to have injuries regardless. Do you have an explanation why so many kids, especially college level, are blowing out ACLs, tearing hamstrings? Is it because the game's that tough?
Oh boy, we could do a whole couple hours on this. We've really extensively got into this. I think you have to bring in the science to help. Science has to be part of this because the players are so big, they're so fast, they're so strong. We're playing on surfaces that help them play even faster, and we're putting these young men in positions to move so fast and so quickly that we're putting such stress on their joints, and at times they can't hold up. So it's up to us to do full functional movement screens to find out if there are any deficiencies, which we're doing, to help them build up their bodies so they can withstand running at the high rates of speed that they are. We got to protect their head and do that in practice and make sure that we don't lose man hours because of head injuries. So Yeah, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, and as coaches and as trainers and doctors, we all have to look at ways that we can cut down on those instances. Is there a prevention? No, you're not going to prevent them, but I think we can cut back on them, and we feel really lucky right now on the things that we've done this year have really helped us a lot in a number of those areas.
Well, speaking of ACL injuries, this is about Drew Tranquil. On Saturday, I heard you talk a little bit about his leadership skills and how you've seen that grown, but what have you seen at practice that would make you want to play him along with Max and Devin, and where do you see him on the depth chart at the safety position?
Drew's a physical player, a great, strong safety, if you will. He is very versatile. He can play in some of our sub packages to the point where, you know, he's a guy that we can blitz and do a number of different things with him. But he's certainly a guy that plays close to the line of scrimmage, guy that has the skills to do a number of things. As you know, he's a very smart kid, so he picks up a lot of the different schemes that we have. And he's reliable. You know, you're going to give him a task, and he's going to get it done for you. So consistency, reliability, and the ability to do a lot of different tasks for us.
Coach up top.
Yeah.
You've talked about wanting to establish a deeper rotation along the defensive line going into this season, so guys like Isaac and Jerron can limit their reps. Where are you guys right now as far as developing that rotation to where maybe you have guys that you're playing because they've earned that, or kind of are you still in the process of trying to force that issue a little bit?
No, we're getting as camp goes along. You know, Pete Book was done a nice job for us. He's had some good practices for us. You know, he continues to get better in each and every day. You know, Brandon Tiasom is still, you know, learning but developing. So, you know, we're certainly further along than we were at this time last year in terms of that shade position and gaining some more depth at that position particularly. But, you know, to have two guys like that is pretty good. If we can get to three, which, you know, we're getting better there, that's a pretty good rotation at any level.
Does having more opportunities to kind of go nickel and dime, which you've said you're able to do with guys being back, and then the young freshmen, redshirt freshman guys that are in, does that help you kind of save some reps for some guys being able to maybe get situational with your defensive linemen as well?
Absolutely. Now those guys are not playing in those situations inside. You're moving. You know, Isaac Rochelle's playing inside. You're moving some different personnel inside and eating up some of those reps that they would normally get. So that's how you're stretching the game and stretching the reps for some of those big guys inside.
And the last one for me, Jonathan Bonner's kind of a guy you've been moving around a lot, different package sets, but also playing some three technique and some end. Kind of talk about where he is in his development and what kind of progress you've seen from him from becoming a playmaker.
He's just got to let it go. I mean, he's coming, you know, he's making progress. You know, you see some glimpses of it. He's a really good athlete, plays a little bit hesitant at times, but when he lets it go, he's a really good athlete. You know, big, strong, physical kid. But we're seeing some progress with Jonathan every day, and I think we'll continue to see that.
To your right. Just curious, what has been the biggest surprise for you through 2 weeks, whether it's a player or development? Does anything jump out that you really did not expect so far in fall?
You know, probably some of the freshmen that have been able to handle themselves. I think, not that they're going, like Tony Jones has been really good, but, you know, he's probably not going to play very much. You know, we've got three great backs, but he's been really good. Chase Claypool he's been really good. He's going to have a hard time playing a lot. I mean, there's a lot of young guys that have come in here not afraid to compete, which I love. And that's what we wanted from our freshmen. All the DBs and safeties, they all have come in not afraid to compete. I love that. Doesn't mean they're going to play. But and I don't know if I'm surprised as much, because that's what we want when we recruit them. I guess I'm pleased to see so many of our young players come in and not be blinded by the bigness or be overwhelmed with being at Notre Dame. they've come in and they've competed, and really that's probably struck me more so than any freshman class that I've had here at Notre Dame, that they're not afraid to come in here and compete. They're not ready. They think they are, but that's been fun to watch.
Up here.
Yeah.
I just got two about linemen, one offensive, one defensive. First with McGlinchey, obviously he's very good, but what does he need to do and show you to get to the level of Ronnie Stanley level of lead, or the Martin brothers, kind of like at that level? And
Yeah.
then on the other side of the ball, Isaac Rochelle, obviously a very versatile guy. Do you think versatility is his best trait, or what do you think are his biggest strengths and weaknesses as an individual player?
You know, Mike, remember now, Mike was not an offensive lineman, a polished offensive lineman. He's evolved into, one of the very good offensive linemen in the country through great hard work on his part. I mean, he's made himself. Ronnie was born to be an offensive tackle. You know, great bender, great knee bender, great feet, great pass sets. Mike is evolving into that. He needs to continue to grow into being a great pass setter. He's played with great balance this year. Probably a little overextended at times last year, showing great balance, staying on his feet, finishing off blocks. Continue to evolve as a pass protector, and he's doing that. But again, he was a lot more of a raw player, if you will, coming in than Ronnie. Isaac Rochelle has been outstanding. He was more of a, four technique, inside, hold the point player. He's been extremely versatile for us, playing in our sub package now inside, holding the point as a 6 technique and a 9 technique. He's going to help himself a lot at the next level with his versatility because he's moving so well. So his improvement has been strength and his ability to move his feet.
Up here, Brian. What are the main indicators that you look for on the defense to show improvement, not just for the start of the season, but to sustain throughout the whole season?
Well, it's consistency, especially, look, the techniques necessary to play corner and safety require an attention to detail that is really like no other position. If you're off just a little at corner and you don't use your right technique, you're going to get beat up the sideline for a touchdown. So I think it's that mental and physical consistency on a day-to-day basis that sometimes eludes some of the young kids when they get tired. Cole Luke's been outstanding at it this year. He's a senior, he's a veteran. Where at times his technique escaped him last year, it doesn't escape him very much at all. So it's that consistency of technique and the attention to the detail is what we need to see week in and week out. And we're getting more of it, but we're going to need much more from that group.
Brian, here in the middle of, like you said, with the running backs, do you envision a situation where you maybe go hot hand at quarterback if one of those guys is really lighting it up, the vibe is good on offense? Is that a possibility, or are you going to force yourself to use both of them?
They're both going to play. How it unfolds, I mean, the game would dictate a lot of that. I'd be lying to tell you that I could give you an exact answer other than they both have to get on the field and they both have to impact the game in some fashion.
Brian, you've had some time now to assess everybody over a period of time. I'm wondering if there's a couple of guys maybe on offense and a couple of guys on defense who wasn't sure he was going to help us, and now he's making strides and might be in that mix.
I think, from an offensive standpoint, Colin McGovern, I think, is a guy that is going to help us. I wasn't sure where he was going to end up for us, whether he was just going to be a guy, a depth guy that we were going to count on. He's going to have to help us. There's no question about that. I think, if you look at the receiving core, I think Miles Boykin's going to help us too. Those two guys I wasn't sure about coming in, but those guys will help us on offense.
At the same time, as you run down those lists, are you in the office after practice and saying, while we're recruiting this year, here's what we really need? I mean, is there any increased focus in any areas so far?
No, it's, we've kind of pre-planned that. I don't think practice would, I don't come in off the office and go, oh, geez, we need to get a Z. No, those decisions are made well in advance as to, replacements at particular positions. We like all of our players. It's just a matter of, are they ready to beat, the teams that we have on our schedule. They're all going to be really good players. It's just our situation is they got to do it now. They don't have time to wait.